Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elise, aka The Pretty Nerd, and today we're going to talk about You're Not Enough and That's Okay by Ali Beth Stuckey. Okay, so let's get on into it. I got my copy from my local Hobby Lobby and I paid $15 for it, and it is 194 pages, including the acknowledgement section. Would I tell you to go purchase this book? No. Save your coins. Get it at the library. Unless you want to pay to be triggered and offended and all of those things, get it at the library for free. Because this ain't that. It's just okay. So the book starts out with an introduction, and in the introduction is kind of like some backstory that put her in the place, in the mindset to write this book or develop the concept for the book. And in the introduction, after you read it, it kind of poses some questions for you. And I took notes on the back of the receipt that I purchased the book. Don't judge me, judge your mama. And some of the questions that you kind of gather from the introduction, the first question is along the lines of, is self-love toxic? And immediately we want to think, no, it's not. Like, if I love me, how is that toxic, right? I agree. The second was along the lines of, can the answer to self-hate be self-love? And immediately, again, you want to think the answer is yes. Like, it can be. Why can't it be? The third question is, how can self be both the problem and the solution? And that kind of paused me for a moment, had me thinking, like, if we think that the answer to self-hate is self-love, but if I hate myself, how do I teach myself to love myself? So the answer to self can't be both the problem and the answer. So now I've changed my thought process. So now the answer is no to the second question. And then the fourth question is like, it's not a question, but it's just, she leaves you with this blanketed statement of, you're not enough and that's okay. And I agree with that to a certain extent. So hear me out. The book is then broken down into 5 myths, which we will get into with titles and my interpretation and how I felt about the book in a whole. But though that is how the introduction starts out, kind of attention grabbing, kind of thought provoking, well, at least for me, because it had definitely had me thinking, you can't be the problem and the solution, or can you? And my answer is no, you can't. But we'll get into that here in a moment. So this first myth is called You're Not Enough. And this is the myth or the chapter that I aligned with the most. Like, she started out this chapter like really powerful, really strong, like talking about how a college breakup left her doubting herself and her worth. And she found herself in the world of promiscuity and excessive drinking, and had developed an eating disorder, and all because of this breakup. And while I didn't understand how that led to that, I did understand how the ache of a breakup, the loneliness of a breakup, the self-doubt of a breakup could maybe push some people to do some things that they don't want to do. I too have, I'm sure like the rest of the world, have gone through a breakup that left you lonely and broken and sad, and maybe had you wondering, like, am I enough? Is it me? Am I the drama, like the TikTok says? And to a certain extent, yes. But like my cousin says, we all have too much of this and not enough of that. And so what I got from this chapter and what she was trying to convey in this myth is that nobody is enough. And like I said earlier, I'm a firm believer that nobody is enough, simply because you were made as a vessel that wasn't full. You're not full for the purpose of God to fill you. You know what I mean? Like, he uses you. He puts you in a position to have too much of something and not enough of something else, so that you have reason to seek him. You have reason to be filled by him, to need to be filled by him. And for some people, the breakup is the catalyst to realizing that you're not full. Is the catalyst to realizing that you need help. And here's the thing that I align with the most in this chapter. The self-love culture will have you thinking that you have everything you need inside of you to heal yourself. And if that was true, we wouldn't have to look outward, right? If that was true, we wouldn't need therapy. If that was true, we could heal the problem ourselves. But we can't be the problem and heal the problem. So you have to find a way or a reason to look outward. And for me, and in this instance for her too, God was that outward help. And in him, you can find fulfillment and allow him to pour into you, because that's the only way you're full. That's the only way you're whole. And that is why I aligned with this concept so much, because during my breakup from my now ex-fiance, I was so broken and so confused. And so, am I the drama? Like, what is it? What is it? And so I had to really look outward and get in my devotionals and get in my word to be fueled and reminded that heartbreak happens. It has no bearing on your worth, because when he made you in his image, and he made you the way you are with your quirks and things like that. But you can't put your worth in man's hands. You have to put your worth in God's hands, and everything you need will be found in him, will be renewed in him, will be given by him. And sometimes what he taketh away, or what he takes away, is not because he doesn't love you, but because he does. And in that moment of desperation, he is the one who can provide you with hope. And so that's why at this point she had me in a chokehold. Yes, sis. Yes. I'm not enough. You not enough. That's okay, because he's enough. He gonna make us enough. With him we are enough. And so I was like, okay, I'm with her. I'm with you when you're right. And well, then I wasn't. Now y'all gotta forgive me, because I'm in the pickup line to pick up my kid. So that's why y'all getting this weird angle. But anyway, this section, or this myth, is called You Determine Your Truth. And the underlying theme of this section or chapter of the book is your truth versus the truth. And she kind of bases that off of your truth versus what the Bible says, and how you feel isn't always the truth. And I'll agree to that to a certain extent, because sometimes when you in a thing and you feel a thing, you have this whole perception as reality thought process. And sometimes because you're impacted by it and you're emotional about it and you feel a way about it, while your thoughts and feelings surrounding that are valid, that doesn't necessarily equate to the truth. You know what I mean? Like, I might say something that triggers you and you are hurt by it, but the truth behind it might not be that I was trying to hurt you, right? So that part I agree with. However, in this section of the book, she kind of starts talking about abortion and gender identity and gender sexual preferences, and bases that on some things in the Bible, and is very damaging and hurtful and almost slanderous in a sense with her positioning on it. And if you a Christian, like you say you're a Christian, aren't we told not to judge somebody else based on their decision? And last time I checked, how you seeing might be different from my seeing, but I can't. Who am I to judge you because you did? Who am I to judge you because you sin differently than I do, right? Who am I to judge your sin and say that your sin is worse than mine? And in the good book, it all say that it's the same in his eyes. You know what I mean? And as a Christian, aren't you called to love those that aren't like you, that sin differently than you? Aren't you called to love them anyway? And so she lost me because it became too judgmental, too damning, because you're not like me, too you doing it wrong because you're not a Christian like I'm a Christian. It was giving very much, if you're not doing it the way I'm doing it, well, you going to hell because you're doing it wrong. And so that's when she started to lose me. Okay, so I'm back at home with my good trusty ring light and my receipt notes. And here we go. Myth 3 is you are perfect the way you are. And there was this quote I took from this portion of the book that pretty much sums up the whole chapter. And it says, God calls each of us not to be our best selves, but to be filled with the fruit of the Spirit, which, according to Galatians, is made up of love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Y'all heard that? Y'all heard that? And maybe it's just me, but if we embody all of those things, aren't we being our best selves? Are we being our best selves? I could argue yes. I will argue yes. If we do everything that just said, we are definitely our best selves. So doesn't that negate what she said? Pick me. The answer is yes. It negates it all. And then the whole topic of you are perfect the way you are. If I am made in God's image and God is perfect, what am I? Tell me, sis. What am I? If I'm made in his image and you saying that it's a myth that I am perfect the way I am, but then you say that I am made in his image, am I not perfect too? Did he make a mistake when he made me? And in him making me imperfect so that I seek him, he made me perfectly in the way that requires me to seek him. It's not given what you think is given, sis. Y'all see why I was lost? Y'all see why I was lost? Y'all see why I couldn't follow it? It's just not giving what you think you were giving. It's not giving what it was supposed to give. And then the next two myths become a bit more right-wing, if you will, a bit more misogynistic and bigoted, a bit more racist like. And me being the good sis that I am, I'm gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about it. And then maybe you'll see why I said that this isn't a book that you should purchase, but maybe just rent for free from the library if you want to get myth 1 and get what I got from that part of the book. So let's get on into myth 4. Myth 4 is you're entitled to your dreams. And in there, she says some things about how you aren't promised to live the life you want to live. You aren't promised great things or whatever, blah, 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 something to that effect. And says that you should be living your life according to what God wants for you and all of those things. And while that is very true, God has given us free will, and in the good book it says that he wants to give us the desires of our heart. While they may not be promised, he wants to give them to you. So I just didn't understand this concept. But in this chapter, she says some things that really bother me. She says something along the lines of, if you follow Christianity and you follow the Bible the way that you are supposed to, then you will be considered misogynistic and bigoted. And in this part of the book, she pretty much aligns herself with very conservative right-wing ideology and thought processing. She makes very hurtful comments about perceived oppression by people of color, how the Bible doesn't call you to care about social justice or intersectionality or things like that. She also made a comment to the effects of affirmative action is punishment for whites and like some kind of preferred acceptance for blacks, which is just simply not true. If you don't know what affirmative action is, please reference my last video called The Black Friend by Frederick Joseph, which is a must get if you haven't seen that video. And so those are hurtful comments. As a black woman, as a person of color, those comments and that ideology doesn't serve Christianity. Like, someone could argue that slavery, because it was in the Bible, it's okay, it's right, like God wanted it. Like, it's wrong. It's wrong. And to say that people of color perceive oppression and things of that nature are like not true when they are in fact true. Oppression is real. Systemic oppression is real. Physical oppression is real. Those things are real. And to downplay those and then try to say that Christians shouldn't align themselves with social justice is just an asinine statement, because those things are very real. They're very happening. And if you love God the way you say you love God, you want to help all of God's people. And ending those things helps that. And it further aligns you with doing the work that God has asked you to do. So therefore, you wouldn't be telling people not to follow those things, not to concern themselves with those things. And you wouldn't be trying to find scriptures that tell you that that's not what you should be doing. Because we are God's people, and we all should have the same freedoms and the same liberties and the same customs, and we know that people of color don't. So she really lost me there. Like, it was a 0 out of 10. I would not recommend. Yeah, no. It's a no for me. Okay, we made it to myth 5, y'all. And this myth is called, you can't love others until you love yourself. And I agree with her that, to a certain extent, that this is a myth. Because we have seen people love others more than they have loved themselves. Let me give you a few examples. So, we have seen women who have hated themselves and judged themselves and all the things for all the things that they are not, give birth and love that child far more than they've ever loved themselves. We have seen people give to partners and love partners more than they love themselves, right? We have all seen somebody give something of themselves to someone else that they aren't giving to them. What this chapter is missing is the fact that when you love yourself, you give a more pure love. You give of love more freely, more fluently, more consistently. And you don't allow for love to be taken from you in order to give to somebody else, if that makes sense. So when you love yourself completely, wholly, as an imperfect person, might I add, you can genuinely love another person for being imperfect. You can selflessly love another person and love their shortcomings and understand that we all got too much of this and not enough of that. Right? So, because the truest form of love is to do so selflessly. And so, what the book missed is that if I love myself selflessly, if I embody selfless love for myself, I can give that to other people. If I love myself conditionally, I only learn how to love other people conditionally. And so in this chapter, she labels self-love as a type of cult and cult-like behavior and self-affirming yourself and things of that nature and self-care as cult-like behavior. And there is real beauty to be found in those things for the reasons I just mentioned. And so overall, the whole book is like, it's really giving pick me energy to me. Like, pick me because I'm a Christian and I'm doing it right. And the rest of y'all that call yourselves are Christians really aren't doing it right. So you should do it like I'm doing it. And it's a no. Be who you are, authentically. Love yourself for that and give of yourself to others freely. Not in a way that it causes you to think less than of yourself or takes away from you, because I'm a firm believer that you can't pour into somebody else when you empty. And that's why loving yourself is so important before you go and try to love somebody else. Loving yourself selflessly is so important, because then if you do that and you see God to fill you up in the ways that you aren't full, baby, you a whole thing. You a whole package. And you giving whole, complete love to other people. You see that? You see that? That's what she missed. All of that. That's what she missed. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you give it a like, a comment, a share, and stay tuned for the next one. I appreciate y'all time. Y'all be well. My daughter told me that I forgot to tell y'all to subscribe. So, do your girl a favor. Subscribe to this channel. There will be more book reviews coming. Y'all have a good day.